You're going to look for here is, in this case, we're going to be looking at Darren Camps. So they have called in and set up an account with us, but they want to set up their account to have cylinder exchange. And once we get on their account, you're going to go to set up cylinder exchange record. You're going to choose the location that cylinder exchange will be assigned to. If they have multiple locations, that's fine. You'll see that in the drop down and can choose from one. If you want to track anyone like the salesperson, you can do that. So in this case, we'll say Damian Myers. If they have a PO number with you, you can assign a unique PO number. Fill location would be the location in which where this cage is at. And then the number of cages is how many cages that are there on site. So in this case, we'll say 1 cage. The description can be really whatever you want. It can be a name of the cage, where it's at in terms of the store or the location. But in this case, I like to put 20-pound cylinder exchange cage. And then any instructions that the driver is to follow when he gets there, whether that is going inside and getting a key or getting a code from the store, it's really up to you guys what goes in the instructions. You can capture signature if you so choose. That will show up on the mobile application, which we will cover here in a little bit. And if it's a consignment cage, you can check that as well. In this case, I'm going to leave both of those blank at this time. Cylinder count, this is where you assign how many cylinders would be in the full cage. So in this case, we'll put 20 cylinders, and then you can choose the type. And in my demo site and my demo data here, you can see I have 3 types of cylinders: 20-pounders, 33-pounders, and 43-pounders. If you have a multi-cage, the cool thing, the unique thing is you can assign multiple sizes. So if we needed to assign, 6 33-pounders here as well, and they had 2 cages, you can do that. Delivery and service billing. So if you ever need to go and provide service to that cage, or the delivery bills that you're posting here with these cylinder exchange deliveries, this is where you assign what location that goes to. So if you have an account that has multiple locations with, say, a headquarters account, you can send the invoices to the headquarters, but obviously you would be delivering to the unique locations that have the cylinder exchange cages. And then tax schedule is really the last piece. If there are appropriate taxes to be applied on these deliveries, you would need to have the tax schedule set up and assign it there. You hit save, and that creates our cylinder exchange record. Now, to add to the cylinder exchange, we have default pricing in here, but let's say we came to an agreed upon price with this customer. We're going to go into Actions, View Edit Pricing Plans, and then here you're going to be able to set up a new pricing. So I'm going to set up a new base pricing record here and just choose cylinder exchange, and if there are unique payment terms, we'll say net 15. And we'll set up the pricing. Now, it is pricing by cylinder size. So if it was a cage that had multiple cylinder sizes, a 20-pounder and a 33-pounder, for example, you would need to set up a record for the 20-pounder and a 33-pounder. You can do a fixed price where you assign an appropriate price with the customer, or you can do a variable price, which means you're choosing a price code in your system, and then you can do an adjustment up or down off of that price code. So in this case, I'll do $1.50 off our retail price for 20-pounders and hit save. Hit next. You can choose whether or not to show the price on a ticket that you could print in the field. That's really up to the user, the account, on whether or not you check that box. Hit create plan, and that creates the plan for you. So now when we deliver our cylinders to Darren Camps, they will get the cylinders for $18.50 versus the $20 that typically is the retail price. Now, another piece in here that you can have with our cylinder exchange functionality is setting the cylinder exchange cage up for a scheduled delivery. So putting it on a schedule, you can do that by going to Actions, Edit Cylinder Exchange, and in here, right under the Schedule section, you can say Add Schedule. Now, our scheduling options provide a lot of flexibility to you. You can have a schedule for various times of the year. So if you want a spring schedule, summer schedule, fall schedule, winter schedule, you can do that. But I'm going to have it on one overall schedule for the year here, and I'm going to say that it gets deliveries on a weekly basis. we're going to do every 1 week. We're going to go out there and exchange, and that's going to take place on Fridays. Hit save. That should create the schedule record for you. And now those scheduled dates are going to project out. And when we do a pull for the cylinder exchange deliveries, they will show up in that pull screen for a dispatcher to choose, and then obviously route and dispatch down to the mobile device. Now, down here, and we'll touch base on this a little later, you can see your cylinder counts and your history that you have. Obviously, no delivery history yet to this cylinder exchange record. But as we start to deliver to this cage, over time, we'll start to see a turnover rate, a cylinder rate, and an average drop rate start to show up. So when it comes to reporting, you get that unique functionality in Cargas Energy of showing how you're doing on your deliveries to that particular account, and whether or not you're having turnover and what your average drop sizes are. And you can kind of dial in what schedules you need to have. So if you're once a week and you're not dropping off, many cylinders each time, you can dial that back maybe to 2 weeks every 2-week delivery, things like that. Other than that, that's really what needs to take place at the customer screen as far as record creation goes. So now we're going to go ahead in, and I'm actually going to look at another account to show you one way to create a ticket. So if we go to John Herr Market here, they have a cage with us, and if the cylinder exchange cage is not on a schedule, they can be on more of what we call a will call schedule, similar to how tanks would be will call. If they wanted to call in and create a delivery with us, hey, we need you to come out and exchange 20 pounders at our cage, you can create a ticket by going to Actions, New Cylinder Exchange Delivery, and then in here you can create that unique ticket. So by default, it's gonna use the size of cylinders that we have there, obviously, and the count that we typically have. So pick up 20 empties, drop off 20 full ones, bring those 20 empties back, and that's the typical delivery, okay? So if we need to dial these numbers back, if they order a specific quantity of cylinders, you can do that in the drop-off section. And if they tell us that right now they have 10 cylinders to pick up, 10 empties to pick up, we can dial that in here. So you can edit this and dial that number back if you so need to, as well as the drop-off. If there's any notes you need to enter as part of this, you can. Any additional line items. So if there's any charges, any added charges that you have, like an emergency delivery fee, things of that nature, you can have those charges set up in the system and add them in the additional items section. Otherwise, if you hit close, that ticket is created. And now if we refresh, you can see with the little red truck that there's an open delivery to John Herr Village Market. So that's one way to generate tickets on customer accounts. The other way would be the pull functionality that we have with these scheduled deliveries. So now, if I go to Other, Cylinder Exchange, Pull, that is going to be where a dispatcher lives to do his pulls each and every day, each and every week. How often you do them is up to you. But what you do here is you say a start date that you're pulling for, and then an end date. And I'm going to pull about a week in advance. So I'm going to pull from the 19th, today's date, out until next Wednesday. When you hit search, that's going to come up with any deliveries that we have that need to be made to those cylinder exchange customers, okay? So you can see here we have various deliveries. You can see the customer name, the cylinder exchange number, so that's actually the unique record. National account actually has multiple locations with me. That's why you're seeing many locations here. You can see what location name is, the address of the location, the city, the state, and zip, if there's a phone number, region, etc. Last delivery date as well. Now, what I'm going to do here is choose the ones that need to be created for today, as well as a couple in the future. So the ones for tomorrow as well, so that I can plan on routing those. Next week's, if you want to, you can choose those, but that's really up to you as a user. So once you've selected the tickets you want to create and send over to the dispatch screen, you can go ahead and say generate selected or generate all if you want to generate tickets for all the tickets you've pulled. But generate selected, that will take them off my pull screen, created 12 tickets successfully, hit OK. And then if we go to the Other, Cylinder Exchange Center, that's where those tickets are now residing. So you can see I've pulled those 12 scheduled tickets, and I have that one will call ticket in my list here. The Cylinder Exchange Center, for those of you that are familiar with our delivery center, it looks and feels very much the same. You're going to have some filters available to you, like the region filter, driver filter, device filter. as well as some routing, origin, destination, and options there as well. Copilot routing options, set up routing endpoints, things of that nature. If I want to look at my overall ticket list, you can do that by clicking on unassigned tickets, and that will show you the 13 tickets that we have created to route and dispatch out to our cylinder exchange drivers. If you want to highlight which ones are scheduled versus will call, you can do that by clicking on each one of those sections as well. So we have our scheduled list, we have our will call list. Tagged would be any deliveries that the dispatcher has chosen to tag for whatever reason. They can do that by add to tag on a ticket, or if it was already out on a route to a driver and he sent it back for whatever reason, it will come back as a tagged ticket, something that we need to follow up on maybe, for example. But what I want to do now is go to the route screen and create a new route for. So I'm going to go ahead and say new route button here and give it a route name. So in this case, we'll do Todd's 719 exchange route. Choose the route date, and yes, you can route for the future. That's really up to your company. Hit create route, and that creates the initial route. Now, we need to specify where we're going to be starting our day, where our driver typically starts his day. And that's typically at one of your offices or bulk storage plants. So we're going to say the Lancaster office is the origin, and the destination is also the Lancaster office. So he's going to start his route at the office, he's going to end his route at the office. You need to assign a device that you're going to dispatch to, and in this case, I see a list of devices there. It's going to be the Todd Dell laptop that we're dispatching to today. Hit save, and now what we can do is we have the backbone of the route. We just need to add tickets to this route. So if we go to actions and add tickets, what that does is allow us to provide a quick filter. Now, we're getting a message here that there are 6 equipment that are not geocoded. Click here to review. That's important. We need to geocode those so that we can plot them on the map. If we hit geocode all, it's going to try and successfully geocode those records, and we'll get a message if anything failed. So 4 successfully geocoded, 2 failed. We would want to look into those. But at this time, I'm going to ignore those. Now, we can add based on various options: zip code, cities, states, map codes, etc. So if I knew I wanted to concentrate on a particular area, I could do that. But I know a lot of these tickets are based on scheduled dates. So I'm going to go ahead and say delivery date min of today and max of today. And what this should provide me is a list of tickets that need to be done just today. And we get 6. So if I plot those on the map, you can see them spread out here. If I zoom out a little bit, that gives us a little bit bigger list of those tickets. So you can click on these dots and they show you exactly who the customer is and exactly the cage. So the national account headquarters here, and the delivery address is 1205 Lancaster Road in Manheim, Pennsylvania. Blue dots are your scheduled. Oops, gotta zoom back in. Blue dots would be your scheduled tickets that you have, and any orange or yellowish dots that you're seeing would be those will call tickets. So you can click on those as well and see them there. You can one by one choose to click on these tickets and add them to the route. That's really up to you. But what I like to do here is over in the top right of the screen, we have this select unassigned tickets button. What that allows us to do is drag and drop an area similar to delivery routing, for those of you familiar with mobile delivery dispatching. You can drag and drop an area. It selects all those tickets for you in that area. And now I can hit the add selected tickets to route button, and that adds those tickets to my route. Now, as you can see up here in the top right, we're starting to build some information. 0 of 120 cylinders dropped off, 20-pound cylinders. If there were other sizes associated, you would see that. So if we had any 33-pounders or 43-pounders to go out, you would see that in the list as well up here. But in this case, it's a very simple route. It's just going to be 20-pounders today. There's 6 tickets. We do not yet see a total time or a distance because we have not yet optimized our route. So that's really the last step here in dispatching, is to go ahead and say optimize. And you're going to choose that truck or vehicle that you're optimizing for. Are you optimizing for distance or time, minutes per stop, include current traffic, and avoid tolls? So those settings are really up to the dispatcher and the company as to what you want to choose. But if we're happy with those options, we can go ahead and click optimize. And that's going to try and put them in an optimized order for us. So now I'm seeing that these 6 tickets should take about 2 hours and 30 minutes route time and 57 miles of driving. If I'm happy with that, I go ahead and say actions, dispatch route, and that will send it down to our mobile device. Now on the mobile application, which is what I'm going to open up now, your driver's going to have a tablet, Android or Windows tablet that he can shift into here at the beginning of the day. And what I'm going to do is say driver Todd Grimm, truck Lancaster Cylinder Exchange T1, odometer starting. I can print a shift summary if I need to, but that doesn't really make sense yet because we haven't finished the shift. If I needed to print a small means of containment, you can do that here. If you need to configure a printer, you can do that here. But we're going to skip over those for today. Hit start shift, and that will start my shift. And now you can already see that route that we dispatched from the back office is showing up on our device. So Todd's 719 exchange route and the date. We give a list of the remaining cylinders to drop off. So that's looking at the number of cylinders that we have to drop off throughout the day that we're projecting to drop off. And in this case, it's 120 cylinders to our 6 spots, our 6 tickets. All right. Now, some things to do before we start delivering to our route. What I like to show is the initial inventory of the truck. So you can see this truck is dead empty. They have no full cylinders on it, no 33-pounder or 20-pounder cylinders on it, no empty cylinders on it, okay? So some of the stuff that needs to happen before our driver can go out is he needs to maybe fill up some empty cylinders. He can do that by going to this screen. So the fill cylinders screen is where a driver would go on the tablet to enter the number of cylinders that he has filled with propane from your inventory, your bulk inventory at your storage, and then it'll update in the back office the inventory counts that we have of empty cylinders versus full cylinders. So we're going to say the cylinder inventory location he's pulling empties from and filling them up is our Lancaster Cylinder Exchange warehouse. Empty cylinder type, we're going to choose the 20-pounders, but he can do other sizes there as well. Fuel inventory location, where is the propane coming from? Let's say Lancaster bulk storage. It can be coming from a bobtail though, any one of those inventory locations that houses propane. And then in your list, you choose what product, and in this case, it's going to be propane. Now, the number of cylinders that we're filling, I'm going to go ahead and say it's 50. So he's going to fill 50 empty 20-pound cylinders. And as you guys know, that equates to about 4.7 gallons of propane per cylinder. So that comes out to about, we'll say 235 gallons of propane overall. Create transaction. What this will do is it'll create an inventory adjustment in the back office that will deplete our empty cylinders by 50, add 50 full cylinders to our inventory, but also take 235 gallons out of our bulk storage and spread that cost across those cylinders. So it's nice how that works. If you need to do another transaction, you can choose whether or not to do that here. So would you like to enter another fill transaction, yes or no? You could say yes, and then you could proceed and fill some 33-pounders, for example. All right, but I'm gonna dodge over that today. Now, before we go, we gotta load up. So we gotta say that we filled up our truck with cylinders. So load cylinders from inventory location. We're gonna choose that exchange warehouse that we filled those 20-pounders up at. The cylinder type that you're loading, and how many. And I'm gonna load 120 here. Delivery date, yep, that's fine. Add cylinders, you can see it adds it there. If we needed to add any other sizes, you could add to this list, add 33-pounders, add 43-pounders, etc. But if you're happy with this, you can go ahead and say complete transaction. And now if we go back to inventory, and we might have to wait a couple seconds here for this to update, but you can see it's telling me I have 120 20-pound cylinders that are full on my truck. And in this case, I'm happy, I'm good to go. So if I go to my routes now, I would want to go to my first stop. You can do that by clicking on it. If your driver does not know how to get there, he can hit the navigate button down here in the bottom, and that will open up the Copilot tool that provides turn-by-turn instructions on how to get out there, okay? So in this case today, I won't hit the navigate button, but like I said, if he needs to, he could do that. Once he gets there, he's going to come back to the screen here. If there was a PO number associated, he would see it. If he needed to enter any notes, he could. He would see the description of the cylinder exchange cage, any delivery instructions that were associated with this particular account. He could delete the ticket for whatever reason. So if he needed to delete it, he could delete it and provide a reason. Previous delivery history you see here as well. And down here is where he can go ahead and pick up and drop off. So in this case, let's say we got out there and we were expecting to pick up 20 empties, but we only found 18. And in this case, there were 2 full ones still sitting there, so we only dropped off 18 full ones. And you have the ability to do that. You have the ability to dial these numbers in exactly to what your driver picked up versus dropped off there. And I'm going to hit save now that I made those changes. So this will update your delivery total as we do this up here in the top center. If we need to add a tank, let's say we get there and they ask for 33 pounders to be dropped off as well. Maybe they got a new cage and we didn't know about it. You can actually add tank here and add 33 pounders and add 33 pounders to pick up if there were any empties there to pick up. All right. In this case, I'm not going to worry about that, but you could. And then the additional items, similar to how we created the will call ticket in the back office, there's an additional items section here that allows you to add a fee or a charge or what have you to that delivery. But otherwise, if we're happy, we hit complete delivery and view invoice. This takes us to a preview invoice screen. This is the type of invoice that they would get from the back office if we sent it via mail or email. Obviously, we would have your company's logo. We could do some changes, some minor changes to this invoice as well. And then down here, you see exactly what we went and did. The customer name, the address that we went to, the cylinders that we picked up versus dropped off, any associated unit price, total, and taxes. And then down at the bottom, you can see kind of a summary of what we did. So the subtotal, any additional charges, tax total, and then what they owe. I can see here that this customer is actually set up for auto pay, so it's telling me that their credit card will be charged tomorrow for the amount that we delivered. If they want to make a payment in the field, you can do that. This will create a batch in the back office that needs to be reviewed and posted by a CSR or credit manager. You can see if they need to get an emailed invoice, you can get a signature here. So they can capture a signature. So I'm going to say the name of the person that we dropped off the cylinders to. I'll just use myself. And then you can have the signature show up as well. If you want to print a ticket, you can, or save an email. And we'll go ahead and say save an email here. And now that should take me back to my list of the route and the deliveries that we have remaining to do. We would continue on throughout our day and choose the next delivery. If we get there, pick up 20, drop off 20, complete delivery just as we did before. Like I said, if the driver needed to enter any notes, he can do that. All right. And now, if you continue on, like I said, we would finish our day typically, but for time's sake, I will not bore you and go through all 6 of these deliveries. What your driver would do at the end of the day, let's say he gets done and he needs to get back and unload cylinders. He can go to the unload tab here and he can check his inventory and say, oh, okay, I have 38 empty cylinders that I need to unload. I have 82 full ones still remaining on my truck from the counts that we had. So what he can do is go to unload to whatever warehouse he needs to unload those empty cylinders into, the cylinder type, and then the quantity. So he's going to unload 38 empties from his truck back into the exchange warehouse so that they can be filled up and then processed out again. Add cylinder count. If we needed to add any 33 pounders or 43 pounders, you could. You also see that they can empty their truck from fulls as well. So maybe I wanted to say, hey, you know what? Take 2 full off my truck as well. I want to just have 80 sitting there remainder. So I can add full cylinders. I'm dropping off 38 empties and 2 full ones into my Lancaster Exchange warehouse. When I hit complete transaction, that will create an inventory adjustment in the back office that will be posted. You can review and correct that if need be under certain circumstances. All right. But really, other than that, those are the processes that your driver would go through each and every day. When it's time to end his shift, like I said, he could do a truck inspection. So it comes time to end that shift, he can do a truck inspection, he can print the shift summary that we had, print a small means of containment, configure printer, et cetera, et cetera. But if I go down here, to the odometer end and type in that we drove 25, and we'll just put in 55, sounds good to me, and shift. And here's where he says, was a defect found while conducting the truck inspection, yes or no? If he says yes, he's going to be required to put in there what was found. So we'll go ahead and say the windshield wipers were actually broken and need replaced. This will create a report that can be viewed from the back office that you can provide to an internal mechanic or external mechanic or whoever needs to get that information to fix whatever is wrong with your cylinder exchange truck. We also have this functionality on our mobile delivery application as well. But otherwise, if we're happy here, your driver's going to sign off that he completed that and hit submit, and then his shift is now done. And that is the mobile device in essence. If he needs to log out, he can do that in the top right. Now, there's a few things to talk about in the back office. One of them being, how does the route show? Well, as your driver gets done with his deliveries, your route will start to show the completed versus what he still has remaining. You'll start to see a purple line show up as to where he actually drove. If we go back to the cylinder exchange center, you can always see a real-time view as well. So my laptop does not have GPS active on it, but if it did, you would see blue dots for where your trucks were at, for where those tablets were at in those trucks out in the field at any given time. We also have the ability to look at the driver shifts section. So in here, you can see previous shifts that were done. You can obviously view a shift summary, view the truck inspection that was done, play back the shift on a map. And that will give you kind of turn by turn where that driver was, how long they were there, things of that nature. Same functionality as we have in the delivery side. So if we needed to view a shift summary, you could do that. And this kind of ties into that reporting that you have day in and day out or each week. So here's our shift summary for that cylinder exchange. Where they were, what they dropped off, how many loads they did, things of that nature, payments collected. Now, those deliveries that we did, those 2 deliveries that we did, will go and show under the cylinder exchange posting screen. So this is kind of your last chance to review for correctness those cylinder exchange deliveries that you provided to your customers. In this case, I see the 2 that I did on my application, the John Herr Village Market and the National Account Headquarters. I can see the exchange tank we dropped them off to, exchange cage, the total price, the driver. If there was a 0 delivery reason, we would specify that there. Region, address, location, city, state, drop off. So what we dropped off versus what we picked up. Other lines would show, a ticket information would show. But if everything looks correct to me, you would choose your cost center and post. Please note that you can also filter this exchange posting screen by driver. So if you had multiple drivers, you could filter down to that driver, post his work, and then go on to the next one, post that next driver's work, so on and so forth. But when you hit the post button, that is going to generate that AR on those customers' accounts. All right, so now if I want to go and look at one of those accounts that we were on, if I go to look up and go into my national account here, headquarters, I can hone in on my cylinder exchanges there. And as I said before, as you start to deliver to these cages, and we'll go into this Mannheim one right here, you will start to see the turnover rate as you have deliveries rack up on those. So you can see here, this is an example of one, turnover rate 53 days, cylinder rate per day, average cylinder drop. As you start to deliver, you're going to see that information start to calculate. So you can see here past deliveries, etc., and your cylinder counts. So that's how the information starts to show to you. So you can better dial in your schedules and when you're going out, things of that nature. All right. Some of the other reporting we provide you is under our Cargas query. So if I go to reports, query, we can concentrate on a couple different ones here, but I like looking at the cylinder exchange transactions query. I have a weekly exchanges report that I look at. So maybe an admin level user at the company wants to see how many exchanges you did, what you dropped off, price you billed, things like that. You can go in and run this query and we can see that exchange information here. So here is the exchange information that we've done over that period of time. So it's a week by week report. You can change the filter dates, things of that nature. But you see the document date, the extended price, unit price, taxes, what we dropped, any drop off reason where we didn't drop off any cylinders. You can view the document ID. This is a link that you can click on and go into that actual document. You can see the customer information, address, things of that nature. So obviously there's some other criteria or other columns that you could filter on, but this is one of the reports I like to look at as far as cylinder exchanges go. And then if I look at my cylinder exchanges in general, if you wanted more of a high level view, my national account actually has 12 different cylinder exchange locations on it. And I have a turnover rate report that I run that I look at those turnover rates that we generate on each one of those locations. Now, some of them I have not done deliveries to. That's why you're not seeing any turnover rates, but you would start to see these rack up as you deliver to those accounts. So that's just some examples of reports that you could build, information that you could gather and see in your system. So without further ado, that is in essence the Cylinder Exchange app front to back. So if there's any questions, I'll check the questions pane here and answer them now. So there's one here. Does the inventory of empty full cylinders follow from warehouse to truck? Absolutely. It creates what we call in transfers, and they post automatically. So if I go to the inventory transfer, posted transfer screen, and I can highlight here the date. So I want to highlight the date and the type, and they actually have their own unique types. So for GL mapping purposes, tracking purposes, I can see those. And if I want to look at my unload, I can see any unload transfers that were done. And if you guys remember, I actually unloaded 40 at the end of my shift there. So if I look at this one, I can drill in and see that exactly 40 cylinders were unloaded, 38 of them were empties, 2 of them were fulls. So that inventory tracking is in there. It does follow it and post. And then another question I see here is, what about fills from the tablet? The fill that I did, that fill transaction. So if you guys remember here where I went to fill and specified the gallons, that does not post automatically. So that's one of those things that we want somebody to review, because maybe the driver accidentally typed in the wrong number of gallons or just breezed over that. If we go to open adjustments, there is an open adjustment sitting there for us to review. So we can go in here and see exactly what happened. That we had 235 gallons leave our bulk storage. If we need to change that, we can. You can see how the cost follows. And then we needed to deplete our empty 20 pounders by 50 and add 50 full pounders. So it is tracking that information as we go. If you're happy with this, if you've reviewed it and it's correct, you can choose the cost center, status completed, and you can even see that we have a unique type for this, cylinder exchange fill. Keep in mind that that can be used in your GL mapping for distributions, things of that nature. Hit save, and that creates that transaction. How do I get? Can you export the end of day information to Sage 100 accounting software? So Sage 100, we do not have a direct integration to, but what you could do is gather your general ledger distributions and any payables or bank rec that you have. You could generate those into Excel export files, and then a lot of the Sage solutions or QuickBooks solutions, Peachtree, those types of things, they have Excel import functionality that you could import those down in. Now, we do have direct accounting integrations to Sage Intacct, which is a cloud-based accounting solution, and also Microsoft Dynamics GP, which is another accounting solution. Those would be the two we have direct integrations to.